In this section, I'm going to be talking about the command or the control modifiers, and we'll be looking at how to use these to perform more efficient edits and also to very quickly and easily move footage around in a timeline. By using these modifier keys, we'll be performing various ripple actions. And these ripple actions are a more efficient and more precise way to create trims or edits while you're working in your timeline. They can also be used to reduce excess gap creation and the associated cleanup work. So if you find yourself cleaning up your timelines or dealing with gaps on a regular basis in your timeline, hopefully these tips will be very useful to you. Ripple edits also make you a faster editor. Let's take a look. Notice when I press down the command key that I get the little yellow icon, and when I trim an edge of a clip, it will trim the clip and it will automatically seal the gap. What I also do is I find myself positioning the playhead first, and this allows me to use the J, K, and L keys or the left and right arrow keys to very precisely position my playhead where I want the edit to occur. Then I can hold down command and I can drag the edge of the clip and it creates a very precise edit. Q and W are very popular keyboard shortcuts that you can use that somewhat automate this process. Notice if I'm towards the head of the clip and I press Q, it will trim to the playhead, sealing the gap automatically. And in a similar manner, if I'm near the tail of the clip, I can move my playhead around and press W, and it will do the same thing. It will perform a ripple trim and it will automatically seal the gap. Notice here in this case, if I hold down command and I simply drag and I extend my clip out to the right, this will ripple everything down to the right on my timeline, rolling out footage, giving me access to the additional footage in that clip. And I don't have to move everything around or reconstruct my timeline. This command modifier can also be very useful when you need to reduce or you need to enlarge gaps in your timeline. If you hold down command, you can actually perform a ripple edit on the gap itself. Notice here, holding down command, that I can click and drag the right side of this gap in the timeline. If I drag it over to the left, it will automatically seal that gap. If I do a similar thing and I select the right side of a gap, hold down command, click to drag, I can roll out that gap, creating a larger section of my timeline. Because it's a ripple action, it will even keep all of our timeline markers that we have in this sequence synchronized. We can also use command to perform a ripple insert, which is a very common and extremely useful type of edit. If we look at this timeline, let's say that I want to insert a new clip in between two existing clips on the timeline. What I can do is I can click a clip in the project panel, and as I drag it over into my timeline, it will by default perform an overwrite edit. If I press command, notice we get the ripple indication. And by holding command and letting go, it will perform a ripple insert. It will think of it as creating a hole in the timeline. It will then place the clips in the timeline, and it will ripple everything over to the right. It's a very, very quick and easy way to insert media. And it's far better than having to go into your timeline and select a bunch of clips and move them out of the way to create a hole to create room to work. You can also perform this same type of ripple insert with multiple clips. Say, for example, I select multiple items in the project panel, drag them over into my timeline, and it ripple inserted multiple clips. And I can also load clips into the source monitor if I want to trim them, create in and out points. And when I drag these down into my timeline, in a similar manner, pressing command will perform a ripple insert into my timeline as well. Really common, really useful edit that everybody should know about inside of Premiere Pro. When it comes to moving media around in your timeline, watch what happens when I hold down the command key. If I hold down the command key before I click to move this clip, notice that I have a new icon that pulls up. What this indicates is that it's going to remove the clip and it's also going to seal the gap. If I keep this key held down, it will then do a ripple insert. So you can see that I can move this clip around from one section of my timeline to another without creating any additional gaps. I also don't need to move around any of the footage in order to make this edit happen. If there are times when you find yourself working in a more complex sequence with multiple tracks, and you want to explicitly make sure that this edit is track specific, just add the Option key, and that will perform what is known as a rearrange edit, very similar to what we just talked about, but it specifically isolates the function to operate on a single track.